Visit MikeThompson.com. Your adventure starts here at Mike Thompson RV.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Hey guys, I missed you, love you, and I really appreciate all the subscribes and the bells. Right, Brandy? What do we want them to do?
Subscribe and bell.
Hit that subscribe, hit that bell. But today, guys, we're talking about surf. Any of you people out there surf? What's the surf like today, Adam?
Waist high and worth your time all across the Orange Coast Riviera. I think it's worth suiting up and going for a decent paddle.
That's what we got to do, people. But today, guys, we've got somebody very cool in studio. Right, Troy?
We do indeed. As far as surfing goes, I watch from the beach. I'm not much of a surfer.
Now look
Just
at
a
that.
voyeur?
Look at that white boy. He's not much of a surfer over there, is he? Hey, Wayne, welcome in studio.
Well, thanks for having me, Hammer. It's going to be fun.
Hey, man, we love having you. Have you been surfing lately?
Actually, I went out yesterday, and it looked bigger than it actually was because the high tide didn't help early in the morning. But the water and the beach is super clean, believe it or not.
So that whole thing, the whole oil thing, you think we're past all that?
I think so. I mean, I think most of the stuff has been cleaned up. I mean, it looks really nice. And I was looking for any spots of tar, and I didn't see any, so it was out there.
I mean, we always get a little bit, but, not bad. So, Wayne, how old were you when you started surfing?
Actually, I didn't start surfing until I was about 15. Because remember, I moved here from Brazil.
Right.
So everybody assumes that I grew up surfing, and I joke about it. I lived about as far from the ocean as Arizona is to California.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, you always think of Brazil. You're right on the ocean, right?
Just like, United States, not everybody's on the coast.
Ideally, you'd be right on the ocean in Brazil. That's absolutely where you'd want to be.
You've surfed Brazil, haven't you?
No, I've been south to Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile, but Brazil's visa was too expensive when I was bumming it around South America with a board.
So, Wayne, when you came here 15, and what made you decide to jump on a board?
Well, because it's like what everybody does, right? When you're in California, everybody's out surfing, so you kind of have to learn how to do it. And let me tell you, it's not an easy sport to pick up.
But you were that young Asian kid that didn't speak any English. I mean, how did you pick all that thing up? I mean, what was the TV or just watching the people around you?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. It's like when I got here, I didn't speak any English. So my friends at school, the few that I had, said, hey, you should probably pick up a sport. So that will help you learn a little English because you're going to spend more time with, your fellow students.
Sure.
So you have a couple of options. And I said, hey, I'm here from Brazil, so obviously I could play soccer. But back in 1975, American kids played soccer like they play football. They tackled you, which is not an easy, and again, it's a non-contact sport, relatively speaking. So somebody suggested that there's another sport just like soccer, but played in the pool called water polo.
Oh, nice.
So I joined the water polo team, but they forgot to mention one minor detail. You have to swim in order to play water polo.
It helps.
My son played water polo. That is a brutal sport. And he was starving every day when he came home. They have to tread water for an hour and then swim back and forth and then tread water and then, and then get dragged down and try to, get a ball. It's like, that's an intense sport.
Well, in Orange County, like between the schools here from Estancia to Newport Harbor City, this is like the mecca of water. This is the capital of the water polo in the United States.
That's where all the studs come from.
Right? So, and I had no idea. So here's a little kid who can't speak English and, playing a sport that I shouldn't be playing.
In
right?
a Speedo.
In Speedos. Mm-hmm. And again, all the kids went out, surfing after, before and after practice. So it was one of those where I basically learned the hard way to play the sport. And luckily for me, and it's just a funny side story, one of the hottest TV show in 1975 was a black and white Western called Kung Fu. And in the Western,
Kai Chang,
no, it was David Carradine, plays the Shaolin monk, right?
Yep.
Well, in it, he gets picked on the entire movie or show, and at the very end, he rolls up his sleeve and kicks some butt. Yeah. So I kind of figured it's still.
It was Kwai Chang Kang.
Yeah.
That was his name.
Yeah, there you go.
And he could snatch the pebbles.
Yeah.
I basically learned to say, you know what? If I want to play this sport, I got to figure out how to get playing time. So just to give you an idea how bad of a player I was when I started as a freshman, on the depth chart, 7 players played the game. There were 32 kids on the team. I was number 31.
Hey, you got to
That other
start
kid must have
somewhere.
really sucked.
Yeah. So I didn't understand a word the coach was saying. I could barely swim, right? So I basically figured out if I can basically use my kung fu skills underwater, I might get some playing time. So I became, in about a year, one of the dirtiest players to ever play the game in Southern California.
I
So-
love that.
I went from being number 31 as a freshman to spending 3 years on the varsity team.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's all because I could basically dish it out.
Did you actually were trained in
I wasn't
karate,
trained.
kung fu, or you just watched the show and you watched
They
the
learned from the show. I mean, come on.
You know that old saying, you got to fake it until you make it?
That's awesome, man.
That is amazing.
Wait, so you're a native Brazilian who learned a martial art through an American Western TV show rather than any sort of jujitsu? Can we enter you for a Guinness Book of World Records? What's our next step here?
No, he's not a Shaolin monk, but he plays one on TV.
Yes.
And you talk like this, right?
Yes.
No, but think about it. How badass is that? I mean, think about it. You're a kid. You don't know the language. You don't know how to swim. And in 1 year, you become the baddest guy in the pool, right?
Yeah.
I gotta start.
So, but
watching more
that's
TV.
that's kind of who you are.
Yeah,
You're-
but basically, I've always said, hey, everybody always said, you can't do this, right?
Right.
And I said, well, why not?
Right.
So, Asian kids, literally in the 70s, there were basically, I call 4 sports that you were allowed to participate in, right? Tennis, golf, piano, and violin, because they're all non-contact sports.
What happened to ping pong?
Well, ping pong is kind of like,
That's a contact sport.
Piano and,
Yeah, that
piano
doesn't
and
count.
violin are sports.
I'm just saying that those are the skills that you could, acquire. But anything to do with contact, I mean, it's like pretty much you were told by your parents that you could get hurt.
So, Wing, I mean, that's just badass. I mean, kudos to you, brother. I mean, that's just cool as hell. But what about the surfing thing? That all transpired at the same time?
Yeah, because part of the rite of passage, today, junior lifeguards, you can sign up for.
Oh, yeah. Junior lifeguard's amazing. Yeah.
Right? Well, back then it was called YEPS, Youth Employment Program, and you had to qualify. And if you weren't a good water polo player, you couldn't be a junior lifeguard or a lifeguard. So that's how everything kind of evolved. And part of the rite of passage was basically body surfing the point when it was red flag.
Right.
So it was one of those where I've never seen the ocean. What am I doing when it's 15 feet at the point? Well, you didn't have a choice because you either had to go home or had to body surf.
Well, Hammer,
So
I
you
think
learn to
Wing
surf.
actually goes back further than that. I mean, like, he got tough early on, right? I mean, you're from China, right? Your parents are.
Yeah.
And so they left, went to Brazil. And what did your parents tell you about them fleeing from China?
Well, basically it was either flee or basically go into a communist country where everybody stayed and basically lost everything. So my dad left first, and this is another crazy story. All of my dad's friends remarried along the way in Hong Kong, Japan, or Brazil, and the United States, because their first wives were back in China and they couldn't get out. My mom, after waiting for 10 years with my oldest brother, said, hey, your dad is never coming back because you can't come back into a communist country. So my mom followed the cookie trail all the way to Brazil. So you're talking about my family's always been, hey, I'm not going to wait and see what happens. I'm going to go and get it.
Wing, what was supporting you in Brazil when Dad was in the United States?
We happen to have a very successful Chinese restaurant in Brazil.
So he went to America and he still had the restaurant running.
Yep.
So that's what supported the family.
Yep.
So he was happy with that and secure with that. So he could go forward and do something even bigger and better.
Yep.
And of all places, they come to the U.S., they move to Costa Mesa, but where's the restaurant? Balboa Island. I mean, was he that insightful or just lucky?
I would say lucky more than anything else. I mean, it's one of those, a combination of risk and luck, right? And
That's
luck
life.
follows the people that take risk at the right time at the right place.
So I didn't know this until a lot of years ago, but my family and I have been going to your restaurant for 35 plus years.
Yep.
I got to tell you something. I never even knew the name of this restaurant because I don't even know if it's out front, but we always, because it's the only Chinese restaurant in town.
Yeah.
So it's where everybody went.
Is it Shanghai Pine
Garden.
Garden. Right.
But nobody really, they just said, I'm going to the Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
That's what everybody thought. But when Mr. Lee started it, how did it really take off?
So right after they opened, at the time, the biggest celebrity in Newport Beach was the famous actor John Wayne, who since passed away.
Everybody loved the Duke.
The Duke. So Duke's wife had a publicist, and her name was Gloria Ziegner. The fictitious story that everybody knows is that John Wayne celebrated his birthday at my dad's restaurant. That's not what happened. What happened was Gloria's husband at the time was having a birthday party. So they said, hey, the restaurant's not really full. Can we rent out the restaurant? They're like, sure. So they set up a big long table. About 20 some people were there. And Gloria asked Pilar, John Wayne's wife at the time, said, hey, it'd be great when your husband, comes and picks you up, whatever, stop in and say hi. So he comes through the kitchen and basically walks in. And the picture that's taken is my dad and John Wayne. So the legend became that John Wayne had his birthday party there, but that's not what happened. It was Gloria's husband. Yeah. So overnight, within a month, the restaurant went from 20% occupancy to an hour wait to get in.
To John Wayne's favorite restaurant.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you wanted to be serenaded by the same chef that sang happy birthday to John Wayne, which was my dad, would come out and sing happy birthday to you.
Awesome.
Chefs are known for their vocal abilities and really like range within any song. And Happy Birthday is the perfect anthem to really experience a chef's skills.
But wait a minute. He wasn't singing Happy Birthday, was
Yeah,
he?
he wasn't singing Happy Birthday.
It was some Chinese opera song. And to this day, we laugh about it because my dad knows 2 songs, and one of them is the song he sang.
Do we know what it was about?
I have no idea
No clue.
what it is.
But you know what? I mean, think about it. That's how we get our inspiration. Your dad gave you and your brothers all that inspiration, all that knowledge. So Wayne, tell us how you decided that get away from the corporate job, and I'm going to go in with my brothers. Did you sit down at your mom's kitchen table and figure this out? What happened?
Pretty much. I mean, so what happened was in 1988, my dad was getting ready to retire finally from the restaurant. Say, hey, do you guys want to take over the Pine Garden or the Hang Chow right here on Costa Mesa? And my brothers and I looked at each other and goes, well, not really our cup of tea. Plus, we can't really cook Chinese food as well as my dad can. And we were sitting around literally talking about, look at all the TV shows. There's always a place where everybody hangs out, like Cheers.
Absolutely.
And I said, why don't we create something that everybody hangs out after surfing? And we thought about it because everybody talked about fish tacos. Everybody talked about Hawaiian plate lunches from Hawaii. And we thought, okay, there's this great Italian restaurant, Luigi's, right here on Placentia Avenue, that was up for sale. And we thought, hey, Billabong is across the street. Quicksilver is about 6 blocks away. A couple of other, Wave Tools is right here. I think if we open this cool little taco stand, and I said, let's try it. And so we borrowed about $30,000 from my mom and dad. And they said, you guys are crazy. I didn't send you guys to go to college, so you guys could
do this.
To do this. And they said, well, let's, give it a shot. And, and the whole time we said, you know what? Just remember one thing. I told my brother, because we got to find our John Wayne. Because otherwise it's just going to be another, taco stand. And literally within basically going into the first summer, 6-7 months after we opened, we were just kind of chugging along, and we ended up partnering with Billabong, and they basically said, hey, we'd love for you guys to be our official restaurant. Wow. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, are you kidding me? Getting an endorsement from, at the time, what I called one of the top brands in the world. So I immediately called the other guys. I called Gotcha, I called Stussy, I called O'Neill, Quicksilver, and he goes, hey, we're going to be Billabong's official restaurant. They're like, are you kidding? You can be ours too. So we had 6 biggest brands in the world as their official restaurant.
So basically you had 6 John Waynes.
Yes.
I think the other way around. I think the surf industry found their John Wayne.
Nicely said there, Adam.
What a kiss.
Okay.
Adam.
So that kudos to you on that, because that's a big deal when you all come together and work as a unit like that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a great team effort because everybody always pulled each other. And there was never this, hey, I'm going to go surfing. We all knew if you want to surf, you got to go before and after work, right? So we just, worked hard. And literally, as the surfing thing kind of took off, even Sean here, our guy that's working here from Quicksilver, he remembers we were going to the trade shows. We were doing all the things that nobody else was interested in doing. So the surf contest led to the trade shows, to the, literally the video premieres. And then this little thing happened with snowboarding starting in the early
Oh,
90s.
wow, yeah.
We basically pivot to do a little bit of that in the winter. Then this whole thing with skateboarding reviving because it was illegal. They shut down all the parks. And then again, in the early 90s, they reopened the parks. So Tony Hawk, this whole movement became surf, skate, and snow. And we were the only restaurant crazy enough to show up to these events.
But Wing, if you're not from, this side of the world on the coast, you don't want a fish taco. You don't even know. You're like, a fish taco? Is that a sardine can? What the heck is that, right?
The thing in California, which is really funny, if you live here, you take it for granted. But there's two things that if you live, I call it in Southern California. It doesn't matter if you're in Riverside or in Newport. The assumption is you surf and Disneyland is next door to your house. So all your friends that come and visit you from wherever they are around the world, I want to go to Disneyland tomorrow and I want to go surfing the next day. And you're like, I don't surf. Because what do you mean? You live in Southern California. What do you mean you don't surf? So that's what happens. So the lifestyle is about the culture along the beach. And that's what the surf industry sells. It doesn't matter. And you can laugh because I remember when surf combs first came out, people in Chicago were trying to the teeth are not big enough to comb your hair.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it goes, you don't understand. And 90% of people that bought those board shorts would never surf.
If you look at a surfer, what makes you think they ever comb their hair? That is a wild assumption to be taking from surf comb.
Exactly. It's for your surfboard.
Yeah.
But so again, this is the stories that people, it's the lifestyle. So that's the thing. So it was a learning, but it gave us that opportunity because if we would have just said Wahoo's tacos, people are like, okay, so they serve tacos. But when we said Wahoo's fish taco, they're like, yuck. And I'm like, well, that gave me an opportunity, an opening to explain to them what we did. And they're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. So we use some of the best fish available. And I mean, we've served thousands of pounds. And fast forward, in the last 20 years, we've been the U.S. largest buyer of Wahoo.
And that's all whitefish, right?
Yeah, it's super firm whitefish. Yeah.
And there's no bones. It's just, I mean, it melts in your mouth. It's amazing taco. If you haven't had one of those, you got to go to Wahoo's and have one. Your first one will be your first one after a million after that.
And they're a mean fish too. If you ever go deep
yeah.
sea fishing, you get those things in the boat, you better watch out. Wahoo have, jaws full of teeth, and they'll get you if you're not careful. You got to use a wire leader if you're catching them by his pole.
So what's the next thing that we're going to do, Wing? I've known you for a long time, and you're a really giving guy. Tell me about the Love Drop.
So just like when we started the business, we didn't wait for customers to come in. We went out and, because again, it was a slow start. We went out and started doing events, charities, basically bringing people into the restaurant. So when the pandemic hit 18 months ago, overnight, within 2 days, we lost 85% of our business. It vanished. I mean, it was like evaporated. Like there was no customers. And the main reason, all the people that were going to their offices stopped going to work. They were working from home. So we had to figure out really quickly. So first thing we did is we furloughed as many employees as we could. So we went from a crew of 20 in a restaurant down to 3. Right? Just to keep the lights open. And then I had to find a way. And then my brother said, well, go find customers. I'm like, they're not at their offices. If they were at their offices, I bring them in. So I said, well, where are they at? And I said, the only places are what I call the frontliners, the police, the fire, the hospitals. So we started making deliveries to hospitals. And my brother said, that's a great idea. We still have enough supplies that basically is going to perish anyway. Go ahead and go. But as soon as you run out of that, you got to figure out a different plan. So after about a couple of weeks of giving it away, my brother goes, okay, we're down to 0. Stop giving everything away.
Yeah, you can't keep giving away when you have nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing to give away. So I called my charity friends because all my friends that had money set aside for the galas, the golf tournaments, all the events, everything got canceled. And I said, hey, what are you doing with that $1,000? They're like, nothing. I'm like, can I use it? Well, what are you going to do with it? He goes, I'm going to deliver meals to the hospital. Why don't you come with me? And one by one, they were very reluctant at first because remember, the whole thing was shelter in place.
Yep.
Don't do anything you don't want to do. And the last place you wanted to go was a hospital. And here I'm dragging all my friends to go to the hospitals with me. So we have an amazing team from Yogurtland, Hint Water, Monster Energy Drink, Cliff Bar, Cholula Hot Sauce. I mean, you name all these brands, they're like, we need stuff. right? Vans was amazing because the U.S. Open got canceled. Their pool party got canceled. So I'm like, what are you going to do with all the trucker hats, the bandanas? And it goes, nothing. He goes, hand it over. He goes, what are you going to do with it? He goes, we're going to go and thank the nurses. There's nothing like the smile on the nurses' faces when you gave them pink checkered bandanas. It was awesome.
But think about it. Out of everything that bad that happens, there's always good that it sprouts and becomes a bigger rose, right? And that's what's happened here. And I want to tell you something, Wing. You're an amazing guy. You've got an amazing family. You have an amazing company. It's all because of hard work, caring, and loving that you do. And we support that 100%. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for coming on to Happening Now with Hammer. And we can't wait to see you next time. Hey, guys, peace out.